Yeah, I'm just laying around, relaxing, killing some time, hanging out under the dragster, waiting for some parts to show up so I can put this thing back together again. Still don't have a clutch, still don't have cylinder heads. All I can do is wait. Every time we talk about this, we get in the comments, that car will never go back together again. It will. You just got to be patient. There's nothing I could do about this right now. It's all out of my hands. So updates have been few and far between because there really hasn't been anything to talk about. In the comments, a couple of people did ask about things that they were curious about that I could maybe go into depth with, and I will in this video. But as I'm laying under here, I'm reminiscing a little bit because my favorite position when I was doing this stuff, my favorite position out of all of them in or around any of these Nitro cars was as a diver. And that's actually, it's almost like a punishment, being like the designated diver. But I loved it because you're really in the heart of the action. You've got your hands in the belly of the beast, and you get to see damage before anybody else does. It's a pretty neat position. So what does a diver do exactly? So between rounds, so let's say you're at a match race, you've got an hour or so between rounds. If you're doing a national event, back when I was doing this stuff, you had like 90 minutes between rounds. Now they shorten it down to like 45. And the diver's job, as soon as the car comes back and it gets up in the air, the diver's job is to get underneath there, get the oil out of it, pull the oil lines off on a late model, like on a 426 engine, because they have external oil lines, get the pan down, and then start waiting to see exactly what needs to be done. Although there are some things that are automatic. Like, for instance, pans down, oil's out of it, pans down. Now, if you know certain situations happen during the course of a run, you know right away to start pulling some things apart. So, example, let's say the car had really bad tire shake, or broke traction and the driver pedaled it, or there was some sort of breakage at the back half of the engine, right? So anything in the clutch, anything in the drive line or the differential, any type of breakage like that, right away, automatically, you pull the number 4 main cap down, right? Because what happens is, under load, when the engine is stressed, the crank takes a certain set. When that stress is immediately released, the crank whips, and when it whips, it takes out the number 4 main bearing. So any type of upset or any type of weirdness to the run, you go right to the number 4 and check that. On the other hand, if let's say you had a blower belt break or blower popped, any type of upset at the front of the engine, right away, immediately, you go to the number 2 for the same exact reason. Because the crank is under load. When the engine's under load, the crank is set. It takes on a little bit of a bend to it, slightly, which is one of the reasons why you need such large main bearing clearances. But crank will set a little, it'll set under tension, and then as soon as that tension is released, the crank will whip. And when it whips, it takes out the number 2. So right away, based on what the car did during the run, you know that needs to be checked. If there's no metal in the oil pan, you can, and nothing happened, it was just kind of a normal run, you don't really have to worry about pulling those mains. But what you're doing now is you have to wait until the damage report from the top end comes. So if there's any signs of really bad detonation, either in the plugs or piston, and I says, you're laying under here doing this, while everybody is hustling around And it could be a pretty mean place. It could be a pretty nasty place. Remember, all of this stuff is blazing hot when you're working on it, and there's oil dripping in your face. Anytime anybody undoes a line or anything up top, there's nitro dripping down on your face and your eyes and on your mouth. It's pretty brutal. And in the meantime, everybody is moving around you, so you're constantly getting stepped on. You're constantly getting kicked. It's a place of intense activity, being a diver. So you're waiting for the damage report from upstairs. Any signs of detonation, and you start pulling rod caps because you need to look at the upper shell. Because if the engine was detonating, it means it probably crushed the upper shell. So we're always ready down here with our way to measure. I used to use just a caliper, slide the shell out, and then run the caliper over the outside of it. And if there's a wide spot, most of the time you could see it where the bearing is crushed. But you run a caliper over it, and if there's no major distortion to it, you put it on the side because it's going to go back in. And now you wait also for any pistons that need to come in or out. Match race car, not so much, because your cars are set really easy for match races, and it's rare to have damage, burned pistons or anything like that. National event where you're starting to step on the car, you got to qualify, you got to go rounds, then damage becomes likely. So now you're waiting to know which pistons have to come out, and you got to undo those caps, get that piston out, and then wait for the new one to get sent, and then you're going to lube the bearings and put it all back and torque it. It's a very high action, high activities place, especially when like national event type of thing where I've had them where all 8 pistons were damaged. We've had them where all 8 pistons and all of the main bearings were damaged. So it's a ton of work, and you only have a very limited amount of time to do this. And then, of course, when you're done, everything's got to get torqued back in place. Everything's got to be put back neatly. No leaks, no nothing. You're responsible for a lot down here. And I think that's why I liked it so much, because it was a very high tension. It matched my level of intensity. You know what I mean? Like any place else on the car, and it's like, you kind of, you roll with the punches, but when you're the diver, it's like zero mistakes. You know what I mean? Like you got to get it done. You got to get it done perfect, and everything relies on that precision, that dedication, and you're doing it all where there's oil and nitro dripping all over your face, and people standing on your feet. It's just the way it is. I love this place. I hated doing clutches. Doing a clutch was like literally, it was like punishment to me. Just send me under the car where I could be myself, get in my zone. So, all right. So a couple of people asked about how the the bottom end of the engine is fortified on these things. Because, okay, this is an early style Chrysler. So originally, the bottom end of these things look exactly like a 318 or a 360. Okay, a small block Mopar. Cast 2-bolt main caps. So in the earliest days of blown nitro, before it became necessary to go through all of the steps that I'm talking about being a diver. So you go back to the 1950s, and like up until like 1965, 66, 67, there really wasn't a lot to do. These engines didn't really require that kind of maintenance. Now, they would break, but they didn't require a lot of maintenance downstairs. So most builders, most racers used what was called a girdle. Some of them used a full girdle. So the girdle went around the pan rail. Right, a full girdle goes all the way around the pan rail, and it has straps, box metal straps, steel straps, that would extend down and cover the 3 center caps. So you see the flat spot on this cap. You would take the original caps and mill them flush, or flat, I should say, and then the girdle would be fitted to the block. So the girdle would use the oil pan bolts, or in between the oil pan bolts, to basically fortify the main caps, because the part that breaks on these things isn't the cap, it's the area between the top of the main saddle and the bottom of the camshaft bearing. At that point, because when that gives, the whole crank wants to just throw itself on the ground. That's the area that the rod bolts, the main bolts actually screw into, that spine of the block. So originally, early Nitro racing, they would use those girdles because it was very seldom that you had to pull the main bearings down. Actually, it was very seldom that you had to do anything except change the oil on those engines. But as evolution went along and you got to where they were sliding the clutch and power started to really increase, then breakage got to the point that, or I should say damage got to the point that you had to pull the caps down and get a look. And to pull the whole girdle down just to get a look at the main bearings, well, you just go ahead, pack it up. You're not going to do that in time to get back out there. So they also use a shorty girdle. So a shorty girdle didn't cover the whole oil pan rail, just this area right here between the three center caps. And that was another one. That was difficult because the oil pan, they didn't have custom oil pans to fit those girdles. They would actually have to reconfigure the oil pan rail to go down and, to accommodate the shape of the girdle. And then there were these really funky gaskets. I actually worked on a car once that had this whole setup. And the gaskets were just elongated stock gaskets. I mean, elongated a lot, that would have to get glued into this channel that they would build into the oil pan and then fit over. They leaked. No matter what you did, they leaked. It was a bad design. But anyway, make a long story short, these aluminum caps like these here started coming into play in the early 60s and continued right up until these blocks were replaced by aluminum in 1972, 1973. And that's when the Donovan came along to replace the early motors, the early Chryslers. So, and I'll talk about Donovan's. Donovan had a unique girdle setup that was actually pretty detrimental at first. But I'll get into Donovan's. As soon as I have my hands on a Donovan, I'll show you around one of those engines. So these 4-bolt main caps, these are splayed 4-bolt main caps. And what these do is you've got studs that screw into the bolt holes. And then you see right here, I can't see the camera while I'm doing this, so I'm assuming you can see what I'm talking about. You'll see there's an Allen head bolt in there. And that Allen head bolt is drilled on an angle right here. I don't know if you can see that. And that screws into the pan rail. So this ties the whole bottom structure together. These two bolts, or these two studs, are pulling on the center part of the block, that saddle that's really only held in place by the bottom of the bores and that small area between the top of the main bearing and the bottom of the cam bearing. So by putting those splayed bolts in there, it ties in the pan rails and fortifies that whole area. So it's almost unheard of to have main saddle damage, not main bearing damage, but main saddle damage with this style of cap. And also, they're made out of aluminum. You notice that you'll see that all aftermarket caps are made out of aluminum, because people are like, oh, steel is stronger. But it's actually the steel absorbs a lot. It doesn't absorb a lot of the vibration or the nasty harmonics that happen in the bottom of these engines, and that causes its own set of damage. Those caps will want to walk around and stuff because they vibrate so hard. But the aluminum soaks up those harmonics and it wants to stay put. So overall, a much better setup. So at any rate, that's what we got. It's a stock 331, 354 crank. I checked everything. Everything looks good. Bearings good. These are the oil pumps that we use on these engines, right up actually until the very early 70s. So 426 style engines that have the pump at the front have to suck the oil from the back of the pan. And so a 426 style oil pump, nitro oil pump, is huge. And what it actually is 2 stock oil pumps, you know, the gear and the rotor, or the rotor, sandwiched together inside an aluminum housing. And that's necessary because of how hard that pump has to suck the oil from the back of the pan and bring it forward and then through the engine. But because these things, like the Chevys, have the pump in the back, they were able to get away with just the stock oil pickup and the stock oil pump. And that's all it took to keep these things happy. It wasn't really until 74, 73, 74, and by that time the early motor was really on its way out. And so many other factors came into play that tilted the favor in the 426. But at any rate, make a long story short, even the earliest Donovans were equipped with stock oil pumps. That's all they used on those things. So and that's all this is. It's just a stock early Chrysler oil pump. So that's okay. Quick tour. I don't even know if there was anything worth talking about there. Maybe, I don't know. You guys know. And that's the update. That's all I got. That's all I got. A clutch has been purchased, but it was a couple of weeks ago, and it's still not here in my hands. And the heads are still up at Shacklett's. And there's nothing I can do with this thing except wait. And as soon as I've got it together, or as soon as I've got any progress on this, we'll do more video. So if you have any questions about anything that we talked about here, let me know, and I'll follow up. I've already been through this. We've already done this. It's exactly the same thing that happened with that Hemi GTX a couple of years ago. We'll just give it a quick tune-up and go through stuff. It'll take a week or two. Like a year and a half later, it finally rolled out. So, I mean, it happens. It's just the way it is. I do miss being a diver, though. I'll see you tomorrow.